Hello, friends. Welcome back to Whispers of Time. Today's story focuses on Galileo Galilei, one of the most important figures in the history of science. Galileo lived in Italy more than 400 years ago, during a period when most people believed that the Earth was fixed at the center of the universe. According to this view, the sun, planets, and stars all moved around the Earth. Galileo questioned this belief. Using a telescope, he carefully observed the stars and planets. What he discovered completely changed how people understood the universe. His observations helped prove that the Earth moves around the sun. This video presents Galileo's life and work in detail, while also supporting English listening practice through historical narration. Galileo Galilei was born in 1564 in the city of Pisa, Italy. His family was not wealthy, but they were educated and had a strong appreciation for art and music. His father, Vincenzo Galilei, was a musician and a thinker. He encouraged young Galileo to question ideas and examine them carefully, instead of accepting them without thought. This influence played a major role in shaping Galileo's curious and independent mind. From an early age, Galileo was deeply interested in understanding how the world worked. He enjoyed observing the stars at night and experimenting with simple tools during the day to see how objects moved. He constantly asked questions: why objects fall to the ground, how sound travels, and why the moon appears to change shape over time. These early questions marked the beginning of his scientific thinking. As a teenager, Galileo was sent to the University of Pisa. Following his family's wishes, he began studying medicine in hopes of becoming a doctor. However, medicine did not capture his interest. He found himself far more drawn to mathematics and philosophy, subjects that allowed him to explore nature and solve problems. Although enrolled in medicine, Galileo began studying mathematics and philosophy independently. One day, while sitting inside a church, Galileo noticed a lamp swinging from the ceiling. He observed that the lamp moved back and forth with a steady rhythm, even when the size of the swing changed. This simple observation made him think deeply about time and motion. Later, this idea became important in his studies of movement and mechanics. At the university, Galileo often disagreed with his teachers. They followed the ideas of the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, who claimed that heavier objects fall faster than lighter ones. Galileo doubted this explanation and believed it needed to be tested rather than accepted. This showed his new way of thinking, trusting observation over tradition. Because of his strong opinions and willingness to challenge authority, Galileo experienced conflict with his teachers. Eventually, he left the university without completing his degree. Despite this, Galileo continued studying on his own. At home, he read books on mathematics and science and built small machines to test his ideas. His education continued outside the classroom. Later, Galileo began teaching mathematics in Pisa and then in Padua. His students appreciated his teaching style because he explained scientific ideas using clear language and everyday examples. He often demonstrated concepts through simple experiments. During this period, Galileo invented several scientific tools. He developed an early form of a thermometer and improved instruments for measuring time. These inventions supported his studies of motion and gravity. By the end of his early life, Galileo was already known as an intelligent and creative thinker. Although he had not yet made his greatest discoveries, his mindset and methods were clearly leading him toward major achievements. After leaving the University of Pisa, Galileo continued his studies independently. He read widely and performed experiments at home, driven by a desire to understand how nature truly worked. At that time, most people accepted ideas passed down from ancient philosophers such as Aristotle. Galileo rejected this approach. He believed that truth should come from observation and testing, not from authority. One of Galileo's most famous early experiments involved falling objects. Many people believed that heavier objects fall faster than lighter ones. Galileo suspected this belief was incorrect. To test it, he dropped two objects of different weights from the Leaning Tower of Pisa. When both objects struck the ground at nearly the same time, Galileo demonstrated that weight does not determine falling speed when air resistance is absent. This experiment became one of the most important moments in scientific history. Galileo also studied motion by rolling balls down smooth, inclined surfaces. By observing how their speed changed, he discovered that motion continues unless something stops it. This concept later became essential to Isaac Newton's laws of motion. These experiments showed that Galileo was not only a philosopher, but a true experimental scientist who relied on evidence. Science was beginning to change during this time. People started questioning long-held beliefs and searching for new explanations. Galileo became a central figure in this transformation. While teaching in Padua, Galileo designed instruments to measure time and distance more accurately. He invented a compass used by soldiers and engineers and wrote detailed guides explaining how to use it. Although his work earned respect and some income, Galileo did not become wealthy. He also developed a growing interest in astronomy. Night after night, he observed the stars and moon with the naked eye, recording what he saw. He imagined what it would be like to see them more clearly. This idea eventually led him to build a telescope. People who met Galileo described him as energetic and curious. He enjoyed explaining complex ideas in simple terms and believed that nature could be understood by anyone willing to observe carefully. By the end of this period, Galileo had fully become a scientist. He trusted experiments over tradition, marking the beginning of a new scientific era. In 1609, Galileo learned about a new invention from the Netherlands called a spyglass. It was a small tube with lenses that made distant objects appear closer. Intrigued, Galileo decided to build one himself using simple materials. After several weeks of experimentation, he created a working telescope. At first, he used it to observe distant buildings and ships. He then improved the design, creating telescopes capable of magnifying objects up to 30 times. Galileo next turned his telescope toward the night sky. When he observed the moon, he discovered mountains and craters, proving that it was not smooth or perfect as previously believed. He then observed Jupiter and noticed 4 small lights moving around it. These were moons orbiting Jupiter, later called the Galilean moons. This discovery showed that not everything revolves around the Earth. Galileo also observed Venus and recorded its changing phases, similar to those of the moon. This provided strong evidence that Venus orbits the sun. He discovered countless stars invisible to the naked eye, and realized that the Milky Way was made of many individual stars. In 1610, Galileo published his discoveries in a book titled The Starry Messenger. The book spread rapidly across Europe. Some people were amazed, while others were disturbed. His findings supported the heliocentric theory proposed by Nicholas Copernicus, which stated that the Earth moves around the sun. Many church leaders still supported the Earth-centered model, and Galileo's work challenged their beliefs. He demonstrated his telescope to scholars and religious leaders. Those who looked through it could see the evidence themselves. Galileo became famous throughout Europe. His telescope opened a new view of the universe and changed humanity's understanding of the sky. Galileo's discoveries brought fame, but also serious opposition. The Catholic Church taught that the Earth was the center of the universe. Galileo's support of heliocentrism directly contradicted this belief. Church leaders feared that his ideas would weaken religious authority and confuse believers. Some accused him of opposing the Bible itself. Galileo argued that science and religion addressed different subjects. He stated that religion explains spiritual truths, while science explains natural laws. In 1616, the Church officially rejected heliocentrism and ordered Galileo not to teach or defend it. For several years, Galileo remained silent. Later, Pope Urban VIII, once a supporter of Galileo, became pope. Believing the situation had changed, Galileo published Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems in 1632. The book compared the Earth-centered and Sun-centered models through a discussion between characters. Although presented as balanced, it clearly favored heliocentrism. Church authorities reacted strongly. Galileo was summoned to Rome and tried by the Inquisition. At over 60 years old, he was pressured to deny his views. He eventually agreed to publicly state that he was wrong. He was sentenced to house arrest for life. Galileo spent his remaining years confined to his home near Florence. His visitors were limited, his letters were monitored, and he was forbidden to publish. Despite these restrictions, he continued working. He wrote Two New Sciences, a book focused on motion, time, and mechanics. Because it could not be published in Italy, it was secretly sent abroad and printed in the Netherlands. His health gradually declined, and he eventually became completely blind. With the help of loyal students, Galileo continued dictating his ideas. His loss of sight did not end his scientific thinking. Even in isolation, his work continued to influence scientists across Europe. Galileo remained under house arrest until his death in 1642 at the age of 77. Galileo's influence continued long after his death. His work inspired future scientists, especially Isaac Newton, who built upon Galileo's studies to develop the laws of gravity. Galileo transformed how knowledge is obtained. He showed that questioning authority and testing ideas leads to truth. For centuries, his books were restricted. Eventually, scientific evidence prevailed. In 1992, the Catholic Church formally acknowledged its error regarding Galileo. Today, Galileo is recognized as the father of modern science. NASA honored him by naming the Galileo spacecraft, which explored Jupiter and its moons. His methods, observation, experimentation, and critical reasoning remain central to science. His legacy established a foundation for modern understanding of the universe.